Mr. Chancellor, it is my honor to present to you Roméo Dallaire, Senator, Senator, distinguished Canadian, humanitarian, author, lecturer, and national treasure. You have no doubt been struck by his charismatic leadership. In 1994, he commanded the United Nations Assistance Mission for Rwanda, and, refusing to abandon his post, saved thousands of Tutsi from genocide. General Dallaire's experiences in Rwanda are the subject of his book, Shake Hands with the Devil: The Failure of Humanity in Rwanda, which was awarded the Governor General's Literary Award for Nonfiction in 2004 and became the basis of a full-length feature film. Medically released in 2000 from the Canadian Forces due to post-traumatic stress disorder incurred in Rwanda near the conclusion of a distinguished career in the Canadian military, Lieutenant General Dallaire rose again, like the proverbial phoenix, to fight again another day. As Senator Dallaire, he is dedicating himself to preventing genocide, banning the use of child soldiers, and helping a new generation of soldiers reduce the risk of post-traumatic stress disorder. In pursuit of these goals, General Dallaire agreed to serve with Bishop Desmond Tutu on the United Nations Secretary General's Advisory Committee on Genocide Prevention in the spring of 2006, and, following a fellowship at Harvard's Kennedy School, joined Concordia University in 2007 as the Distinguished Senior Fellow of the Montreal Institute for Genocide and Human Rights Studies, and the co-director of its Will to Intervene project, which delivers deeply researched recommendations to governments around the world, helping them to improve their capacity to prevent mass atrocities like genocide and crimes against humanity. Incomparablement intègre, le sénateur Dallaire partage encore et toujours son expérience avec sagacité et compassion. He remains today an outspoken supporter of raising awareness on the means of protecting the mental health of veterans. Honoré de sa présence, nous lui sommes par ailleurs reconnaissants de son dévouement à l'Institut montréalais d'études sur le génocide et les droits de la personne. Mr. Chancellor, on behalf of Senate and the Board of Governors, it is my privilege and honor to present to you Senator Roméo Dallaire, so that you may confer upon him the degree of Doctor of Laws honoris causa.
Senator Dallaire to give us a few of his valued remarks. Thank you.
Monsieur le Vice-Chancelier, Monsieur le Directeur, camp professoral, parents, amis et distingués diplômés, je vous salue et je vous ai très reconnaissant de me recevoir parmi les vôtres dans l'année de graduation 2013. C'est avec beaucoup d'humilité que j'accepte d'emblée cet honneur et que vous avez si bien aussi reçu mon épouse Elisabeth, qui est ambassadrice pour l'UNICEF aujourd'hui parmi vous. I have a close relationship with this university through my mom, who a number of years ago was a cashier in the hall building at the cafeteria, and who on more than one occasion permitted a starving student from being able to get some sustenance, although the funding was probably short. And I won't say because they drank beer all the night before, but and over the 12 years she was here, rose to the job of one of the 3 purchasing managers of this university. And we were very proud of her and of this institution for recognizing her work. If I may, I will attempt to be brief, but brevity is not the strength of a retired general nor an apprentice politician. And because I'm a very visual person, I come from a milieu that's very visual. I did prepare 143 slides, but I guess I won't use them this afternoon. I should like to speak specifically to you, the graduating class, because you today have taken on an enormous responsibility as you graduate from this university, one of the more progressive institutions of this nation, for which I'm very proud to be associated with. You acquire this responsibility because you have joined the ranks of the leadership strata of one of the leading middle powers in the world. Canada is one of the 11 most powerful nations in the world out of 193. It is a nation with enormous potential that hasn't really used nor maximized that potential as yet. We have in the past, on occasion, as your peers 70 years ago crossed overseas, and 1 million of you served, those who preceded you and served in World War II. And even though we had 1 million people in uniform and one of the 3 armies to cross those beaches on the 6th of June, just a couple of days ago, we commemorated in the Senate, not one of the Canadian generals sat at any of the strategic decision bodies of that war. We were tactical. We were the cousins from across the pond. We have come a long way from being the cousins across the pond. We have built a leadership competency in the world. And you are joining that group. You are now going to be part of shaping the future. For that is what leaders do. They don't wait for the future. They anticipate the future. They shape the future. They don't survive it. They bring it about. And it's through their leadership that, in fact, they bring the changes and move a nation and its people to handle what is coming into the future and maximize their potential for that. But we don't necessarily always prepare you totally for that task. And sometimes we tend to forget the strategic focus that maybe we should be giving you, the sort of parameters within which you can, in fact, thrive and maximize your potential. And let me give you an example. A few years from now, it will be the year 2017. 6 years ago, I asked in caucus, where we meet every Wednesday morning, the senators and the MPs by party and by region, to discuss strategy. Really, it's low-level tactics, but anyways, they like the term strategy. And I asked, as we have the opportunity of asking the leadership with all our colleagues there, we got 3 minutes, and I don't stand up often, not being very political, but I stood up that day and I said, what's special about the number 2017? What's special about the year 2017? And I got no answer. And I said the year 2017 is going to be the 150th anniversary of one of the most stable democracies in this world, exemplary in its stability and its advancement of not only democracy but human rights. But it's also going to be the year of the 100th anniversary where your peers crossed that pond the first time, fought, bled, died, and won a battle that moved us from being that colonial cousin to being recognized in blood, by the price of blood, recognized as a nation state amongst others, and that was Vimy Ridge. So my question was, with these two great events coming together to be commemorated, what's the plan? What are we going to culminate in 2017? What sort of grand design are we going to bring to that year? There was no answer. 2 years ago, I asked the same question after the election. There still was no answer of what we're going to culminate in 2017. A 4-lane highway across the country would be a start, but it might be better than that. It certainly has got to be better than building centennial rinks and parks, as we did the last time. And no one wants to take on a mission like Expo 67. Too bad for the contractors. I can say that. I come from East End, Montreal. So there's no... So nothing, no plan of something culminating on that great year. Except when you look at their party platforms, all you see is we'll commemorate the 150th anniversary. Don't even mention Vimy Ridge. But there's another question that I asked, which I find even more important. And I said, what are we going to start in 2017? What is the vision of this nation as we go into this very complex, ambiguous, global world of ours? How are we going to move this great nation? What's its ambition? What are the parameters that we want to give our youth to maximize their potential and maximize what this country can do? And there's still no plan. And that is a significant deficiency in leadership. Not management, leadership, of trying to visualize that future, trying to shape it, taking the risks, showing the humility but also the innovation to be able to move a country into that future. So we're not giving you all the tools, but trying to make you conscious of that responsibility that maybe we didn't pass on, but that you are joining and will have to be participatory in. And so, what of this great country? And where should it be going? And this reminds me of a question I often ask. And I say, are all humans human? Or are some more human than others? Do some count more than others? Is it possible they're more human than others? During the genocide, as I was moving between the lines to negotiate, to move people behind their protective areas, in a no man's land between the fighting forces, up ahead a couple hundred meters, there was a little boy, about 7 years old, in the middle of the road. The extremists were using young children that age to stop the humanitarian convoys. The children didn't stay there, they simply killed them. And so the convoys would stop, and then they would rob all the medical supplies, food, water, and so on, to sustain the slaughter. So expecting maybe this was an ambush, we slowed down, jumped out. I had a couple soldiers with me, no ambush. Went to the huts along the road, and all we found were people who had been killed weeks beforehand. And as we're looking for someone, where there should have been no one, to take care of this little boy, we lost the boy. So we doubled back, and we found him in a hut where there were 2 adults, male, female, 2 children. They were half eaten by dogs and rats. And he was sitting there as if he was home. So I picked him up and I brought him in front of my vehicle and I looked at him. And he was mangy, he was dirty, his stomach was bloated, he was in rags, there were flies all around him. But then I looked into his eyes. And what I saw in the eyes of that little boy, in the midst of that genocide, that civil war, was exactly what I saw in the eyes of my 7-year-old son when I left Quebec City for Africa. They were the eyes of a human child, and they were exactly the same. That boy in that catastrophe was just as human as my son back home. There was no difference. And so we live in an era where soon we'll be able to Skype anybody in the world. We know what the global world is. And you, those still under 25, you are part of this new generation that will take on that leadership role. And you are going to push generations ahead of you aside. Why? Because you're not a generation of X, Y, Z, or whatever. You are the generation without borders. You're already worldwide. You're going to maximize that revolution in technology. You're going to coalesce. You're going to become activists. You are going to feel and sense what human rights means for the world, what environment means as a communion to establish between humanity and the planet so it can thrive and not survive. You will be able to push the yardsticks like we never were. And as you handle that fast-paced change, you will succeed. I believe that this generation will realize that it holds, even in our democracy, the balance of power, and through its engagement and activism will change the face of politics as we move forward as one of the great nations of the world and maximize our extraordinary potential. And to assist you in doing that and sort of ebbing, I think there should be a rite of passage that after an undergraduate course or maybe a technical college, you should have underneath your bed a pair of boots or sneakers soiled in the earth of a developing country. Don't go to Europe, it'll be still there. Go to those developing countries. Go to where 80% of humanity is living in inhuman conditions. Go and see, taste, feel, hear, sense. Sense what is in those human beings and attenuate the rage that might come from there, and engage yourself as members of the 20% of the haves to advance the plight of humanity, for you are the generation without borders, and there is absolutely nothing that can stop you. Thank you very much.
Senator Dallaire, we were here today to provide you an honorary doctorate, but you have indeed honored us with your remarks, with your vision, with your compassion, and with your advice. And we thank you. You've inspired us all. I consider it a personal honor to have been here with you.